a long and winding road. Paul McCartney reference again.
Yes, it is.
So where has that led you? Where are you today?
Although sometimes it's like helter-skelter, so it's more of a number of documentaries under my belt. I've spent the last decade mostly doing documentaries. We did 2 seasons of a classical music series for Bravo, which when I die and you go to the pearly gates and they judge you on whether you're good or bad, I have an awful lot of debits in the bad column. So, you did this in Vegas? Bad. But I'll say, yes, but for 2 years I gave 26 the best young classical musicians Canada has to offer to the world. So that's a good one. So
that's on the good ledger, that's a good one. Yeah,
that's one I can show my niece and nephews. A lot of docs about UFOs of all things, paranormal stuff, and some drama along the way too. I did an adaptation of Julius Caesar for Bravo back in 2000. Right. So, a lot of always working. That was the key for me and for Red Star. A lot of my colleagues back then said, look, we'll go through the telefilm development route, we'll wait 5 years and hope the project goes. And that's fine. That's the traditional Canadian model in some ways. Yeah. I took the traditional Nova Scotian model, which is I'm going to go out, work, make stuff, learn on the job, and hopefully that will lead me to bigger and better things.
Now, it's interesting because a lot of times when you do talk to folks in the film industry, particularly as you say in Atlantic Canada, they do kind of go that route. How different has it been for you to go that route, and what do some of your friends and colleagues say about the fact that you've done so many kind of eclectic things and had all this different work behind you? How do other people kind of see that?
Well, it was weird. The Coast magazine did an article about 4 years ago and profiled 7 up-and-coming young filmmakers. One was Mike Clattenburg. I think he was listed, they had like Mike Clattenburg, the boy wonder, and all this stuff. For me, it was Paul Kimball, the multitasker. And I was originally kind of like, well, it's sort of offensive. How come I can't be the boy wonder or super genius? I sound like an accountant. But then I realized multitasker is sort of a modern way of saying Renaissance man or Renaissance woman. So the legal career allows me to do contracts and not get sort of taken for a ride by people. Right. But I do all the other things too. I like to write. I have a creative background, starting in the music industry, really. Right. So I don't know how they look at me because I don't like them and they don't like me. No, I'm just kidding. They're lovely. They're lovely people, some of them. They do their thing, I do my thing. Right. There are people who do what I do, that kind of way of doing it. And there are other people who prefer to go in the more traditional path. Right. But it all leads us, if we're successful at it, to the same place, bankruptcy.
Protection.
Eventually, yeah. And I do remember that class from law school, yeah. Should have paid more attention. No, it leads us to the opportunities to hopefully make films. In my case, I've always wanted to do drama. So I leave as soon as I'm done talking to you, actually, for Shelburne to start shooting my first feature film. Okay. We have an American distributor, sold it down in LA, of all places. So, they get their way, I get there my way, and we all wind up in the same place, though, hopefully making good films that people will want to see.
Which is important. I mean, if people don't want to see it, what's the point, right?
I've always said so. Look, we're in the entertainment business. Our job is to make widgets, like anybody else makes widgets. But we're to make widgets that entertain people, whether it's documentaries and inform too, if it's in the informational programming. But films should first and foremost be about entertaining your audience and not about working out the personal issues of the filmmaker. If you can do both, great. So mine is a vampire film with a lot of sexy women, sort of a personal issues, but entertaining thing. Other people make films about talking trees and muskrats. I don't know, and that's
to each their own.
To each their own, yeah.
Now, we'll go back a little bit again to younger. Do you remember, pardon me, that first film or that first whatever entertainment genre it was that really kind of grabbed your attention? You went, wow, this is cool.
Sorry, this is horrible for the folks at home. We were joking before we started that I was going to say porn. But there's a lot we could learn from the porn industry. It's cliched and it's weird and it's crazy, but Citizen Kane. It was running on CBC. The ones I can remember as a young boy, I was 12 or 13, and they were running it late night on CBC. And I saw it and it was just like, wow. And to this day, when people, it's the obvious answer. What's the best film of all time? And everybody says Citizen Kane. Right. Well, I'll say Citizen Kane, but then over a half hour of really boring me talking, I'll explain why. I really do think it's just the most incredible film. But High Noon, my dad was a huge fan of Westerns, still is. So I grew up listening to, but also watching a lot of Westerns. I love John Ford's films, but High Noon of the Westerns is my favorite. That sort of iconoclastic hero, Gary Cooper. And then, you know, the more modern ones, I was a kid in the 70s, Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Huge influence. I mean, Lucas jumped the shark somewhere along between the third one and the fourth one, but the first three it's just amazing storytelling and filmmaking too, but the way he told the story. If you saw it in a theater, Darth, I am your father, and that didn't really sort of blow your mind, then there's no hope for you.
We're going to blow your mind some more right after the break. We'll be right back.